I don't know that I want to stay in here for this because I guess what I'll do, I'll grab my 3M mask. It has some carbon filters on it. We're already alarming. With the door open, we're alarming. Yes! Before exposing yourself to any type of danger, it is your responsibility to make sure that you are protecting yourself properly. Listening to some guy on YouTube and taking his word as gospel is probably not the wisest thing to do. That being said, where possible, I did use OSHA and other reliable sources to get my information for this video. And I did about 9 years ago take a confined spaces course where I learned how to use a personal monitor as well as learned about all sorts of nasty chemicals. But again, it is your responsibility to take care of you. What's up everyone? Welcome to Lowered Expectations. Thanks for lowering your expectations and hanging out with me here. I do appreciate it. Today's video is going to be exciting, interesting, and believe it or not, even educational. We are going to test air quality using these 2 meters, and we are going to put my GMC 6-liter V8 head-to-head with a 2 kilowatt diesel heater. Many of you automotive technicians will probably not be surprised at the results of some of this testing, but you may be shocked at how drastically some of the variables change the outcomes of the tests. A whole bunch of people have told me for a very long time that these diesel heaters are dangerous, and if you have the weep hole venting inside of the garage, you're absolutely gonna die from carbon monoxide poisoning. Well, stick with me. We're gonna talk about the actual dangers of carbon monoxide. We're gonna talk about why carbon monoxide happens, and we're gonna see if, well, this truck and this heater actually make a dangerous amount of carbon monoxide. This is going to be a bit of a long video, partly because of the common misconceptions surrounding carbon monoxide, partly because I want to explain to you guys some of the factors surrounding my testing. I want to show you guys the tools that I will be using. We are going to try to manipulate my heater and see if we can change the outcome or the results. We're going to do some comparison between my V8 truck and the heater and see what comes out of that. And I also want to explain to you guys that while carbon monoxide is a very deadly gas, when you're being exposed to carbon monoxide, it may not be the most dangerous thing that you're being exposed to. So stick with me and we'll get through this together. The tools that we will be working with today were purchased on Amazon for about $60 each, so not top-notch tools, but they will get the job done. This first tool is a CM tool air quality detector. It measures HOHC, TVOC, and CO2. HOHC is formaldehyde, which comes from new home builds and new products like new love seat or sofa or something like that. TVOC, total volatile organic compounds, that is from like unburnt fuel and stuff like that. So I'm sure that we definitely will see some of that. And of course, CO2 is CO2, so it's going to get really warm in here. Just kidding. But yeah, I do expect to see a bunch of CO2. The other thing that we have, this is a carbon monoxide or CO detector gauge. If the heater is running really well, if the truck is running really well, then we shouldn't see a whole lot of this. We will eventually see some build up. But if everything is tuned fairly well, then we shouldn't see in 10 minutes, we shouldn't see it go to deadly levels, basically. Anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about the dangers of carbon monoxide a little bit later on in the video. But for now, let's unbox these and turn them on. This comes packaged very well. Looks like it. This is not going to be an in-depth review of these tools. I'm not going to go into great detail about them in any way. we're just going to, we're just going to use the tool and see what it says. Okay, it actually takes 30 seconds to pick up what is in the room. Not sure if the camera can see this at all, probably not because of glare, but it's doing a countdown. 35% humidity, 17 degrees Celsius. Seems fairly low, the 385 CO2. Total volatile organic compounds is 0.009 milligrams per cubic meter. And formaldehyde is 0.020 milligrams per cubic meter. I've now read through the instructions quickly, and they want you to set this in a well-ventilated area before powering it on and using it. So I'm going to set it outside for a little while. Also, the instructions of the manual tells you that if you use it for a while, the fumes will accumulate and it becomes less accurate. So you then want to take it and set it in a well-ventilated area again. So we're going to set this outside now, and we are going to open up the carbon monoxide sensor. The packaging is not nearly as nice. It's good enough, I suppose. Let's power this thing on for the first... Wow! Like I was saying, power this on for the first time. And apparently, oh, it's counting down. I was going to say apparently this is background carbon monoxide, but nope. So that's the maximum, minimum, hold, and live. What sort of unit is that? The reason why I switched over to moles is because that's what it says here in this list. It tells you safe levels or dangerous levels. So we're going to go through that. I do need to mention that outside this thing reads at 0 or 10. It kind of jumps back and forth between 0 and 10. And it appears as though maybe 10 is the lowest it will read. So it doesn't read 5 or 7 or 9. It either reads 0 or 10. And then after 10, it will read, as you can see here, it's 11 or 12. The chart here tells us that normal concentration value, which I assume means outside and open air, is between 0 and 1. 9 is, this is the standard living area for human according to A share 62-1989 regulation. I have no idea what any of that means. 50 moles or micro or mini or whatever that means can stay there for 8 hours according to OSHA regulations. Basically, you can spend your workday at 50 moles or micromoles or whatever this is. 100, this is the maximum value for OSHA regulation. So I assume after 100 you need to evacuate immediately. 50 is an 8-hour workday, so somewhere between 50 and 100 you need to get out. 200 is a little headache, tired, nausea, and dizziness. And then 800 is nausea, dizziness, and twitch, will be death in 2 to 3 hours. So now that we know that, let's actually fire up the diesel heater and do some testing. To try to make these tests as reasonably fair and accurate as possible, I'm going to keep the diesel heater wheelbarrow down by the door, and that's because my truck is going to be fronted in with the exhaust pointing off to one side. I'm going to point the heated air in a direction where it doesn't influence the exhaust, or hopefully it doesn't influence the exhaust, because the truck isn't going to have any fan blowing the air or the exhaust around. It's just going to be the exhaust coming out and circulating throughout the room. So I can hear it just started, and I can smell it's a little bit diesely. I decided to point the vent upwards as I figured that would probably affect the airflow the least. Carbon monoxide is a very dangerous gas, but most people don't understand it very well, so I thought I would explain a few things to you guys. The first thing that a lot of people don't understand is that most people die from carbon monoxide poisoning in their sleep. And the reason for that is that the symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning are pretty obvious and you're probably not going to hang around working in your garage when you start to develop the symptoms. As we saw in that chart, you get headaches, dizziness, nausea, shakes, vomiting, all sorts of nasty stuff way before death. And so it usually makes a person realize, hey, something's going on here. However, because it's colorless and odorless, you can fall asleep, and if you fall asleep in a high carbon monoxide environment, you're probably not going to wake up again. The other thing is that I wanted to say is that typically, not always, but typically carbon monoxide is accompanied by other nasty smells, even though it doesn't smell itself. A good example of this would be an old 1940s or 50s car. If you're running that in your garage, you're going to have your eyes watering, you're going to be choking long before the carbon monoxide becomes a problem. In a newer vehicle, like a new car with fuel injection and a catalytic converter, it's still going to produce some carbon monoxide. You're not going to be chased out of the garage as quickly from the smell, and the volatile organic compounds and whatnot aren't going to be as severe. So right now I'm sitting here next to this heater chatting with you guys, and I don't smell anything at all, but I'm guessing when we go look at that CO2 gauge, which our CO2, well, there's one over there too. The carbon monoxide meter, I'm guessing, will probably be going up a little bit. So let's go take a look at it and see if I'm right. As of 10 minutes, we have no change on volatile organic compounds or CO2, and our carbon monoxide seems to be fairly stable. Let's see, can we see what the max was? Max was 14. Smells a little rubbery. These heaters kind of make a weird rubbery smell when they're new, like a hot rubber smell. I actually took my other one completely apart to inspect it because I thought, yeah, it was making the smell, and I thought something must be wrong. I thought it was overheating or something. Took it all apart, was perfectly fine, and then after a couple of uses, that smell went away. I thought now would be a good time to mention I am in a 24 by 26 foot garage, 2-car garage, and it has about a 9-foot ceiling, a little less than 9 feet. So that's kind of what I'm working with. If you're working in a smaller or bigger space, it's going to obviously change things. This is also really well sealed, like really well sealed. So if you're working in something that's very drafty, wow, why was that so hard to say? Your results are going to change a bit. You'll get more fresh air in. So this is kind of worst case scenario in a 24 by 26 by 9 foot space because it is sealed up very well. How many minutes did I waste trying to do that? 1:40 p.m. Another 10 minutes has passed, and as you guys can see, not much has changed. The max is still 14 on the carbon monoxide. Formaldehyde is not changing, it's at 20. Total volatile organic compounds is going between 0 and 9, or 0.009 milligrams per cubic meter. And CO2 hasn't moved. To make sure this thing is actually functioning, I've taken it over to the heater, and I'm going to put it closer to the exhaust to see what happens here. You know what? I think this thing actually runs pretty clean. There we go, 18, 19, 20. As soon as I come back over here, it's back down to 14. So that tells us that it is actually reacting. So we're going to turn this off. If after watching this video you're interested in purchasing your very own diesel heater, there is an affiliate link as well as a discount code in the description below. If you use that affiliate link to make your purchase, it helps me out as I get a small kickback. It is 2:01 p.m. I've got another 10-minute timer started. I got distracted because my cat Yeah, I don't see anything nasty happening. Wave it around a bit. I can smell some burny smells. I can smell like hot rubber, something. Anyway, if I came out into this garage and it smelled like this, I would open a door or a window. I wouldn't just stay out here with the windows and doors closed. 2:11 p.m. Again, still between 12 and 15. It was just taking a while to react. I started to walk away and it jumped up to 280 something. Okay, so we've now gone to the okay. It was good, and now there's a little indicator on the screen that says okay. Oh, hey buddy. Forgot Quasar was outside on the fence. It has been 2 hours. It is 3:10, and I accidentally forgot this meter on, so it is already showing us we're not high on anything. We're not dangerously high on anything, so I'm gonna restart this just to see what it says. But we've got the carbon monoxide meter setting up there. Okay, it is at 15, 14. So yeah, not at dangerous levels whatsoever. Again, this is not me advising you to run your heater indoors. This is for testing purposes. I will not be doing this in the future. Even though this heater is running well now, it could very quickly change if, say, the air filter got plugged up or something. And so maybe that's what we'll do next. Maybe we'll cause a little bit of a blockage in the filter. All right, we've got a pretty serious air restriction there now. Oh yeah, here we go. All right, we're up over 100, 115, 117. Yeah. Okay, so when you restrict the airflow, bad things happen. As you guys can see, restricting the airflow makes a lot of carbon monoxide. It didn't do anything real crazy with the temperature, but it quite obviously made a lot more carbon monoxide. With the heater running with a unrestricted air intake with the proper mixture, it is running quite clean. I'm not going to run this all day. Quite clearly, the heater isn't making a ridiculous amount of carbon monoxide. Okay, 3:22 p.m. and we've got 385 CO2, 0.059 milligrams per cubic meter of volatile organic compounds. And yeah, again, formaldehyde, basically nothing. These numbers have been fairly stable throughout the whole test. Before we end this video, I wanted to talk about something that I think is really important. I've seen a comment show up on a bunch of my videos. I've seen blog posts and other YouTubers suggest that you can set the air-fuel ratio of your heater using the temperature sensor. So some heaters, not mine, but some heaters have the ability to set the fan speed independently of the fuel quantity. And that, in effect, changes your air-fuel ratio. The idea that a lot of people are pushing is that if you watch the heat on your heater, you can actually use that to dial in the air-fuel ratio. Based on the results of my testing for this video, I would absolutely not recommend using that method for setting your air-fuel ratio. I was able to block off the inlet of my heater and watch the carbon monoxide levels spike drastically, while the heat levels didn't change the way other people claim that it should. So while it might work some of the time really isn't good enough. This carbon monoxide detector was $60, and even though I am very cheap, I think it's a worthwhile tool to have That way you actually know how much carbon monoxide you're being exposed to or how much is coming out of your heater. After seeing how well my diesel heater performed in this test, I think I might actually do 2 separate tests with my truck. It's fairly cold outside. When I bring my truck in and start it, it is going to go through a warm-up. And while it's warming up, it's going to burn a lot of fuel. The catalytic converters aren't going to be working properly. It's probably going to dump a lot of TVOCs, and I assume the carbon monoxide will be higher. So I'm going to do 2 tests. One where we test it until we get some bad stuff happening. And then what I'll do is, once it's fully warmed up, restart the test with a warm engine and see how quickly it goes back to an alarm state or goes back to a dangerous state after it's warmed up. It will very likely make a huge stink and make a lot of carbon monoxide in that initial warm-up. Anyway, that's a lot of talking to explain to you guys what I'm going to do, but let's do it. The truck is in the garage and the doors are open. It is 3:33 p.m. I'm going to turn both of these on. I can smell the truck already. I'm going to turn these on. We're going to check these to see what state the garage is in before I close the doors. Then we'll close the doors, turn the truck on, and start a 10-minute timer. I don't know that I want to stay in here for this because I guess what I'll do, I'll grab my 3M mask. It has some carbon filters on it. We're already alarming. With the door open, we're alarming. All right, folks, so that's how bad a 6-liter V8 is. Now that we're outside, it is down to 16, 15, 14. This test is going to be ridiculous. I'm excited now. Anyway, so both of our gauges are normal. And we're now going to close the doors and start the truck. I'm excited now. I am excited. The doors are now closed and this is down to a normal level. Don't know if you guys can actually see that. 14 or 15, somewhere in there. And this doesn't have anything alarming on it either. So now I'm going to go start the truck. It is currently 3:35 p.m. Let's start the timer and then I'll go start the truck. So we'll set a 10-minute timer and I'll go start the truck. That's 1 minute. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go the full 10 minutes. We're only 3 minutes in, not even 3 minutes in. (3:47 p.m. and I just tried to take my mask off and it's unbearable. My eyes are starting to burn a little bit. We are at 215 for the carbon monoxide. 200 is where you start getting a little bit of a headache, tired, nausea, and dizziness.
You have to get all the way up to 800 before it really starts to get into the nausea, dizziness, twitches, and dead within 2 to 3 hours. The numbers here are still going up a little bit, so the air is obviously moving around, or 1.217 milligrams per cubic meter. The formaldehyde, I don't know if there's formaldehyde in exhaust, but this is reading something as formaldehyde, so we're at 0.220 milligrams per square meter, or cubic meter. Carbon dioxide has jumped up to 841 parts per million. So we're getting poor readings on all of this stuff.
Oh my goodness. Wow. You don't want to be breathing that in, folks. I'm going to take the truck for a drive around the block, and then we'll come back with a warm engine and we'll redo this test. The truck is nice and warm. We're going to close the door down and do this test. Starting to wonder if this thing's working. Did I hit a button by mistake? Mode. No. All right, let's take this by the exhaust. Oh yeah, there it goes. Sorry about that, folks, but I had to make sure that this was actually working. I took it down by the exhaust and now it is reading. Well, there we go. So that goes to show how much better your vehicle is once it warms up. Because we are now a minute and 30 seconds now, and it is reading basically nothing. All right. The total volatile organic compounds went down to basically nothing when it was outside, and they are jumping up. So yeah, it's still not good in that department. Hopefully you guys can see these numbers and I'm not recording this for nothing.
416, folks. There you have it. That is pretty impressive.
All right, I'm gonna go shut the truck off and then we're gonna have a chat. So we actually learned something today, and it shouldn't be of any surprise. Basically what makes carbon monoxide is an incorrect fuel mixture or incorrect fuel ratio when there's not enough oxygen to have a clean burn. So our levels with the truck running after it's warmed up is actually as good or better than the diesel heater. But before and on its way to warming up, wow, that was crazy. Unfortunately, the total volatile organic compounds are still off the charts. We are currently, even with the door open now, we are currently at 1.108 milligrams per cubic meter. And the poor air quality beeper is going off if I turn the beep on. So it is alarming to tell me that the air quality in here is very poor. Apparently formaldehyde is released out of gas engines burning. Maybe it has something to do with it being catalyzed. CO2 is making its way down, but it is at 660 basically parts per million, which is poor. What I am most surprised about is the fact that I was able to run the diesel heater in here for 2 hours without the carbon monoxide going way off the charts. One thing that I didn't mention earlier in the video is that this heater has automatic elevation compensation. So some old heaters you actually had to manually control your air fuel ratio. If you went up higher in elevation, you would actually have to lower the fuel input to keep the air fuel ratio reasonable. On some of the newer heaters, they just have a button that you push. I think they call it plateau mode. And what happens, you push that button and it cuts the fuel back for you being at a higher elevation. And then my heater actually has a automatic adjustment. So it uses, I believe, a pressure sensor, a barometric pressure sensor, which it uses to calculate the air density. They call it elevation, but I think what it's really doing is calculating air density, and then it knows how much fuel to give it. I am in a higher elevation, and it seems obviously it's working pretty well here because it's not pumping out a bunch of CO or carbon monoxide. And you guys clearly saw when I plugged off the inlet, it started getting out of control pretty quickly. Not nearly as bad as a 6-liter V8 running on warm up, but pretty quickly. Congratulations for making it all the way to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it and possibly even learned something. Before you leave, please remember to leave a thumbs up on the video. I do have a list of things that I want to go over before we actually end, and I'm going to try to go through this list fairly methodically because there are some fairly important things. One of the most important things I wanted to point out is that I used my 3M mask with some carbon filters on there. That was not to protect me from carbon monoxide. That would do nothing to protect me from that. That was basically just to filter out some particulates and the TVOCs, or some of them. As you guys can clearly see from the test with the truck fully warmed up, although carbon monoxide didn't make it to deadly levels within 10 minutes, there were some other things that were a major concern. From my research, it looks like the formaldehyde wasn't at dangerous levels, but the total volatile organic compounds certainly were. We made it all the way up to 1.1 milligrams per cubic meter with the truck fully warmed up. Speaking of total volatile organic compounds and why they're so dangerous, they accumulate in your body over time, some of them taking a very long time to leave, and so prolonged exposure will lead those chemicals to build up and cause long-term side effects. Although carbon monoxide and carbon monoxide poisoning is very, very serious and deadly, carbon monoxide doesn't accumulate in your body over long periods of time because it only stays in your body for about 24 hours. I just have a few more things to say before ending this video. The first one being that this whole talking to the camera thing and making videos is actually quite difficult. I did a bunch of research and tried to give you guys the best information possible, but I'm sure that I made some mistakes. If you have constructive criticism or corrections, I would be more than happy to hear them, so leave your comments in the comment section below. However, if you're just pointlessly being a dickhead, along with your comment in the comment section, please leave a link to your video that you did that is better than this one. I will happily share it with everyone else as well as watch it myself. If you're interested in picking up one of these diesel heaters for yourself, there's an affiliate link as well as a discount code in the description below. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.